Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You is a YouTube short series I created all just to get a laugh, and in this video I've kind of compiled all of the shorts together into one so that if you just want to sit back, relax, and have a couple laughs, this is for you. But if you like this type of content, want to see more, or if you have any other suggestions of what type of videos you would like to see, do let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe. I hope you have a great and safe day, and I hope you enjoy the show. Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Abrams. If you main Abrams, you don't believe in strategy, you believe in violence. You see 5 enemies grouped together and your brain goes, yeah, I could probably win that. You don't use cover, you are the cover. And every time you die diving 1v4, you don't blame yourself. You blame your team for not diving with you. And deep down, you don't want a balanced game. You want a game where punching people is the entire meta. Which one are you? Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Apollo. Now you basically think you're stylish, you don't just want kills, you want kills that look rather cool. You're constantly trying to outplay even when a simple kill would have just worked out. You know in your heart that you didn't need to do that extra move, use that extra stamina, use that warp soon, but you're just doing it anyway. And what can I say, it looks pretty cool. And if you're not maining Apollo, make sure to check out the rest of the series. Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Bebop. You don't enjoy normal fights. You enjoy ruining someone's day from across the map. You miss 9 hooks in a row, but the one that lands, oh, you're clipping that immediately. You don't necessarily play Deadlock to win, you play Deadlock for that one moment where someone gets dragged into your entire team, and when it happens, you lean back in your chair like you just invented esports. Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Billy. Now, you don't care about strategy, you care about causing problems. You run into fights, no plan, no fear, just vibes. You see chaos and you choose to make it worse. Now, you either carry the entire game being the perfect initiator, or you're feeding so hard your team is questioning life. And there's really no in between, and honestly, you wouldn't have it any other way. And after every play you do or take, you always tell yourself to the rest of your team that you are the GOAT and the reason we're doing anything in the match. Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Calico. Now, you don't take fights straight up. You take fights from really weird angles that nobody expects. You're always flanking, always repositioning, always somewhere where you're not supposed to be. Your team is fighting in the front line, fighting for their lives, and you're already behind the enemies like, yeah, this is fine. What do you think? If you find yourself playing Celeste, here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Now, let's be honest, the only reason why we really picked this character is either one of the two. The first one, you like her ultimate. You like how it bounces off of people and does a decent amount of damage. The second reason is movement and movement alone. You spend about 90% of the match just moving around at Mach 10 and kind of roleplaying as Foon from 1.6. The other 10% you actually begin to fight. But what do you think? But Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Doorman. Now, you don't play fights normally. You play This Shouldn't Be Allowed simulator. You see a wall and your brain goes, yeah, that's optional. You're constantly opening portals, rotating your team, saving people who absolutely should have died, and every time it works, your teammates think you're an absolute genius. But let's be honest, half the time you're just pressing buttons and hoping it works, and somehow it does. And his ult, don't even get me started with the Baroness Hotel. Now, if you play Drifter, you probably play like this. You don't necessarily play Deadlock, you play a horror game antagonist. You're not taking fights, you're hunting people down. You see a low HP enemy? Yeah, that's not a fight. That's the target. You're tracking them down with blood scent, following them across the map while they're panicking, thinking they got away, but they didn't. Because the second they relax, you're right behind them with the sucker's mug, like, yeah, I found you, and then it's just run, and they're gone. You don't care about team fights, you care about isolating someone and ruining their day completely. And when Eternal Night hits, yeah, now everyone is the target. Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. Dynamo. Now, you don't like fair fights. You like fights where the enemy physically can't move. You see multiple people grouped up and your brain immediately goes, yeah, they're not allowed to play anymore. Now, you don't outplay people, you delete their ability to exist. And honestly, the only reason why you're realistically picking Dynamo is for his ult. And if you manage to land it, you are the hero of your entire game. But if you manage to fail it, you'll be flamed to utter hell. And if you're not maining Dynamo, make sure to check the rest of the channel for your main. Here's what Your Deadlock Main Says About You. The flex players. Shout out to my flex players. You say you can play everything, but somehow you're never comfortable on anything. You're always like, yeah, I can feel, and to proceed to play your worst hero. If you know someone like this, make sure sure to send them this. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you, Lady Geist. Now, besides having a rather big personality, you don't just want to win fights. You want to win fights in the most dramatic way possible. That being 1 HP and getting a last second swap off. You love your big moments, you love your big swings, you love big impact, and of course you do a lot of sucking. And I mean a lot. That of course is the life drain, not the other kind, if you know what I mean. And you might be a little bit of a masochist because you like to hurt yourself to do damage, but that's just coming from me. And at the end of the day, you feel rather unstoppable. But what do you think? And who do you want to see next? Make sure to check out the series. Now, if you're playing Graves, this is probably what you're like. Now, you tell your team you're playing a control mage, but really you're just trying to turn the entire map into your arena. You're placing abilities, blocking space, controlling fights, and if your positioning is good, oh yeah, you look like a genius. You're locking down the whole fight, melting everybody, taking over objectives, but if your positioning is bad, yeah, now you're just standing there, watching your abilities do absolutely nothing. You don't win fights by mechanics, you win by where you stand. And when it works, it looks incredibly easy, but when it doesn't, yeah, it looks really bad. Now, you say your character is heavily reliant on aim, but that's quite a stretch. Now you live in the offlane, and if something happens to the rest of your team, you don't really care. And that's why here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Hayes, you watched one montage. One. And now you believe you are the main character of Deadlock. You're constantly flanking, constantly lurking, and constantly dying in places your team cannot physically help you. But when it works, when it works, you immediately type easy in chat like it was all calculated. Which type are you? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Holiday. Now, you don't necessarily like stressful fights. You like fights where you're in control. You're always positioned safely, always doing damage, always surviving, and you're the definition of, yeah, I'm not dying for this. And you have a strong obsession with kidnapping people, but that might be something else. This is what Infernus mains are actually like in Deadlock. Now, you don't necessarily play Deadlock to watch people panic. You set someone on fire and then just stare at them. They start running, jumping, turning corners, doing everything except fighting back. And you're not necessarily even really chasing, you're just watching their health bar slowly disappear like it's a movie. Instead, you want emotional, damn it! And the best part, even if you die, if they burn out after, yeah, you're counting that as a win. Who do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments down below. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Ivy. Now you enjoy being annoying. Not strong, not super flashy, but just annoying. You poke, you disengage, you come back, and you are the reason people say, yeah, I hate this hero. And you're sort of like an Uber, moving people around the map, of course, only for a fair price. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Kelvin. Now you tell your team you're playing support, but secretly you are farming everything. The jungle, the lane, the enemy jungle, your teammates' wave. If there are souls on the map, you are collecting them. And if someone asks where you were during the fight, you say, I was scaling. You also like to think that you're Frozone from The Incredibles, but in reality, you're just Kelvin. Plain old Kelvin. What do you think? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. The Lash. Now to get into the zone, you have to end and start every sentence with the Lash. The Lash doesn't want fair fights. He wants highlight clips. If the Lash sees enemies grouped together, your brain is instantly going, yep, this could completely go viral. Sometimes it completely works for the Lash and it looks incredible. Other times the Lash just launches himself into the enemy team and honestly dies immediately. But hey, I guess it kind of looked cool. And if you don't main the Lash for whatever reason, make sure to check out the channel to see all the other videos. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. McGinnis. Now, you don't play Deadlock. You play tower defense. You're building walls, turrets, entire infrastructures mid-fight. And the enemy team isn't really fighting you. They're fighting your real estate empire. Or as of right now, they're fighting your ultimate, which just completely decimates the entire enemy team. Now, if you don't main McGinnis, make sure to check out the rest of the series and let me know who you want to see next. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Mina. Now, besides playing the game with one hand, you don't really try to win fights normally. You try to win fights by being as annoying as possible. You're poking, slowing, disengaging, coming back, disappearing. You're basically a mosquito with abilities. For the most part, nobody can hit you, no one can catch you, but everyone is getting tilted, and you honestly hard carry games if played right. Besides also mentally breaking the enemy team, and by the end of the match, they're not even trying to win anymore, they just want you gone, chasing you around the map as quickly as possible, trying to get rid of you. And honestly, that's pretty much okay. But what do you think? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Mirage. Now you don't like being predictable. You like appearing out of nowhere, doing something weird, and disappearing before anyone understands what actually happened. You're basically a jump scare with abilities. Being able to solo push a lane, TP out of a harm's way, run up, destroy somebody, and TP out again, definitely makes the character a little bit interesting. Of course, let me know what you think. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Mo and Krill, or as many people like to describe it, Mohammed and Kareem. Now, you don't care about aim, you don't care about mechanics, you care about commitment. When you go in, you go in. There is no turning back. You have your eyes set on one specific target to hate crime him the entire match. And there's practically no escape for your enemy and well for yourself. All you care about is ulting that one person on the enemy team. Whether it's a 10-0 Haze, a 10-0 Drifter, it doesn't matter. Your only sole objective is to ult him and do nothing else. And if you don't main this character, let me know who else you would like to see. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Paradox. Now, you love saying calculated, even when it clearly wasn't. You make one risky play, it works, and now suddenly, you're a genius. You're the person always looking for a pick to make the difference. But let's be honest, one of the reasons why we picked this character is, well, because of those thighs. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Pocket. Now, you enjoy confusing the enemy team, but more importantly, you enjoy confusing your own teammates. You dive in, you teleport out, you reappear behind someone, then suddenly vanish again. No one honestly knows what's happening. Not the enemy, not your team, and honestly, not even you. And honestly, I can agree with that. What about you? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Sir Remington III. Rem for short. Now, when it comes to playing Rem, there's really two types of players. One is the driver, the man throwing defense-laced pillows at everybody. The other one is the sleepy boy, supporting the rest of your team while they fight. You don't really care about anything, you're just along for the ride. You're roaming the streets, going through little tunnels, saying hi to all your little rat friends, and you're absolutely a greedy little pig. At 8 minutes, you start salivating at the mere thought of the enemy sinners. No matter where you are on the map, at 8 minutes, you're running across the map to wherever their doubles and single sinners are. That is your sole purpose. And honestly, if you start losing team fights, a majority of your teammates are going to be blaming you, realizing that Rem doesn't really do that much instead of just sealing sinners and just healing people whenever they can. But deep down inside, I know you, Mr. Rem player, you are doing whatever you can for the team. Although you do kind of die in like 1 second. Which character would you like to see next? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. 6-7. Sorry, I had to do it. Now, you don't take fights normally. You press one ability and expect the fight to be over. You see a group of enemies in your brain instantly goes, yeah, this is my moment. You don't wait, you don't think, you just press the button and it works. Oh yeah, you feel like a genius, you're like perfect timing, perfect execution, but when it doesn't, you just stand there watching nothing happen while the enemy team runs at you, and suddenly you have no plan, and everyone is blaming you for the team's loss. Which one are you? And this is what your Deadlock main says about you. Silver. Now, you don't pick Silver for fun. You pick Silver because you like hunting people. You're tracking enemies, setting them up, catching them with a bola, booting them in the face, and finishing the job like it's personal. You don't particularly rush fights. You stalk them, you wait, you strike, and it's over. But there's one thing. You act like you're in control, like everything is calculated, like you're a hunter. But the second that curse kicks in, yeah, now you're the problem. You are no longer thinking, you're no longer calculating, just full chaos, and honestly, you kind of like it that way. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Great talent, or what I like to call a babushka. Now, you claim you're a tactical player, but in reality, you just like shooting people from different zip codes away. You're probably always on some type of rooftop or some weird angle, some spot nobody even knew existed. Your teammates are fighting for their lives and you're across the map thinking, yeah, I'm definitely helping. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Venator. Die, monster! Now, you don't necessarily take fights, you hunt them down. You see a low HP enemy, and that's not a fight, that is your mission in life. You're tracking, chasing, trying to teach them the word of God, closing the gap no matter what. Walls doesn't matter, distance doesn't matter. Teammates calling you back, yeah, not happening, because once you've locked onto someone, it's over. You will catch them, you will finish it, even if it gets you killed right after, and honestly, that's a trade you're making every time. And you better make sure, did you pray today? And here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Victor. Now, you don't play Deadlock like everyone else. You play it like a science experiment. Now, you play your normal laning phase, and at 2 minutes, you instantly do your tier 1 camp. After that, at the 6-minute mark, you say goodbye to your laner and just do all of the jungle and nothing else. Constantly farming, constantly kind of doing nothing impactful for the team besides taking all of the farm. Now, as a Victor player, your whole identity is farming and just pushing non-stop. You see Walker, you push. Me Victor, me push. Me see enemy, me push. You kind of talk like a caveman and act like one too. Running completely at the enemy, hoping you kill them all, or you're just gonna end up timing. But fear not, you're not gonna blame yourself because what you're doing is perfectly fine. You're gonna be blaming your team instead. What about you? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Vindicta. Now, besides having a really strong foot fetish, you believe there are only 2 types of Vindicta players, gods and everyone else. Some games you're unstoppable, hitting every shot, hard carrying, and other games you're currently 1-9, but that's not your fault. It's your team's positioning. Of course, obviously. Which one are you? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Viscous, otherwise known as Mr. Goo. Now with Viscous, you enjoy chaos. You enjoy bouncing on things. Take it how you want. You like to slide around. You make the fight look like a physics experiment gone wrong. Honestly, half the time, people don't understand what's going on, yourself included. Throwing puddle punches and goo everywhere, you just can't leave anything unchecked and untouched. You are the reason why a majority of the player base buys this rebuttal first item, but at the end of the day, you truly just like to bounce on it. What do you think? Don't forget to subscribe. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Viper. Now, besides having a really weird fetish with the lash, you don't fight fair. You don't even fight clean. You fight dirty. You're poking, slowing, whittling people down. You don't want a quick fight. You want a fight where the enemy slowly realizes they've already lost. And by the time they try to escape, yeah, it's already too late. And Viper mains are sometimes the polar opposites of one another. You either have insanely good players or insanely terrible players. Which one are you? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Warden, aka the Wall. Now, you might say you chase people down when you're trying to change the world, but in reality, you don't chase people down. You walk at them slowly, confidently, menacingly. You're basically saying, I dare you to try and stop me, and most of the time, they can't. Maxing Cage right away because you want that person you're playing against to have the worst experience of humankind. And remember, at the end of the day, if things go wrong, you can always turn that body cam off. Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Wraith. Playing Wraith now, you're essentially the person who loves gambling. You used to have a chronic addiction to CSGO and CS2 cases, but now all of that can be changed with just a few cards that may or may not do damage, healing, or amplified both. But besides that, you love control. You love being the reason someone loses a fight. You don't necessarily kill people, you make sure they can't play first. You're the definition of no, you don't get to do that. By ulting someone, you can negate all the fun that that character can have. But what about you? Here's what your Deadlock main says about you. Yamato. Snap! Now, you believe honor exists, but only when you're winning. You take duels seriously, you want the 1v1, and when you win, you feel like a samurai, the best person in the world, and when you lose, you just blame it on lag and it's no big deal. And here's what your Deadlock main says about you. 7. You press one ability and suddenly believe you're playing 4D chess. You love saying things like positioning and tempo, but realistically, you just press the ability whenever the cooldown is ready. You don't care who it hits, you just want to watch the health bars disappear. And if your team wins the fight, yeah, that was all you. You did all of the damage. But if your team loses the fight, it is in no way, shape, or form your fault. Which one are you?